Suppose secant of theta is equal to 4. Determine the exact values of the other trig ratios if theta is between 0 and 180. So almost always, since we're dealing with trig, we want to draw a picture to have a triangle, because all of our trigonometry is based on triangles. So when I draw from 0 to 180 degrees, can you see that that includes only quadrant 1 and quadrant 2? And this question told you which quadrant it's in. How do I know if it's in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2? It didn't directly tell you. It's in quadrant 1 because secant is positive. That means that cos of theta is positive. And since secant and cos are reciprocals, if you know secant of theta is 4, then you know cos of theta is 1 over 4. In quadrant 4, right? Yeah, but in this one, they said only look between 0 and 180. We'll include quadrant 4 when we get to B. But for A, it has to be in quadrant 1. This is my angle theta, which happens to also be my reference angle. How tall is that triangle? Quick mental math. We know the hypotenuse. All right, so you will have to do some practice, it sounds like, with mental math here. Right? 4 squared is 16, 1 squared is 1, 16 minus 1 is 15. You're going to get square root of 15 for the other side. If you need to show your work right now, that's fine. Right? We knew the hypotenuse. We knew one of the sides. Subtract the 1 on both sides, and then, oh, B is square root of 15. You don't need the plus or minus here because you're dealing with a length. And lengths are always positive. So now that we have that, what are the other trig ratios? Well, sine of theta, opposite over hypotenuse, tan of theta, opposite over adjacent. The reciprocals, well, we already knew secant of theta. It was given to us to be 4. Cosecant of theta will be 4 over root 15, and cotangent of theta will be 1 over the square root of 15. Thank you. Okay, so in B, what Carson mentioned before is it could be in quadrant 1, right? Or it could be in quadrant 4 with the same reference angle in both. We're not going to rewrite those other ones. We want to now find the angle. If I was finding the angle, how do I find an angle going back to grade 10 math? If you know, choose one of them. This one looks like a nice one. If you know that cos of theta is 1/4, how could you possibly find theta with your calculator? You do the inverse. And so what I'm actually going to do right now is I'm going to find my reference angle. Reference angle first. I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to type in cos inverse of 1 over 4. When figuring out your reference angle, you're thinking about the actual triangle with actual lengths. No positives or negatives involved with a reference angle, because it's really just figuring out a real triangle, just like you did in grade 10. And real triangles all have positive lengths. So I go to my calculator. Now I'm going to have to do second inverse. So cos inverse of 1 divided by 4. And it tells me my reference angle is 75.5 degrees. Just check the rounding here. Does it want it to the nearest degree? So to the nearest degree, my reference angle is 76 degrees. Okay? So does it make sense that my actual angle in quadrant 1 will also be 76 degrees? But how am I going to find out my actual angle in quadrant 4? I know that my reference angle is 76. I'll have to subtract 76 from 360. 284 degrees. Now, I found both of the ones I drew in my picture. Again, reread your question. Notice in your question, it tells you to look for all the answers from negative 360 to 360. So this part right here, now that my pens are frozen, is what we want to find. What did I find with my two answers that I found so far? Holy frozen. We just found the ones between 0 and 360. So we need to find the negative ones as well. So this one, can you see, will be negative the reference angle. You're going to get negative 76 degrees. And this one, when going in the negative direction, can you see that quadrant 1 is like the fourth quadrant in the negative direction? So I like to think about it as going all the way around. Oh, look, everything worked. So there's what I wanted to highlight, and then I tried to underline it. Perfect. Now, if I'm finding out this one, it's going to be negative 76 degrees. And when I try to figure out this one, well, I have to think all the way around is 360 minus 76. I think positively. It's always good to think positively. I think 360 minus 76, that's 284, but now I'm going in the opposite direction, so it will be negative 284 degrees. So you really have to be careful in these questions to look at the domain that they've asked for, because it's going to depend on which answers you're going to find. You're going to use your CAST rule, and I would say that this is one of the most important questions that will come up in this unit, to be able to draw a triangle and solve. But it's very similar to what you did in grade 11. So questions 9, 10, and 11 for practice.